Alright, so last time we talked about the first two advantages of the modular nature, and remember those were that it saves us time, energy, and um, the need for instructions, and then it also allows us to do things over and over. When we do the same thing, concentrated or smaller, over and over again, it helps us to not make mistakes. So advantage 3 is somewhat related to that second one, and that is where in the event that we do have a defective or damaged subunit, meaning that it doesn't fit correctly or there's something about it that doesn't perform its function, then this modular approach to life allows us to very quickly identify it, remove it, and replace it with a good subunit, whether it's in a complex, enzymatic complex, whether it's in a structural part of the cell or whatever. As far as expense this goes, certainly this is less expensive to deal with because all we have to deal with is the subunit, and it is, of course, much better to be able to replace just the piece than have to replace the entire thing. So by having these subunits, it allows us to be able to do that. So a good example in cells would be you've got these chromosomes with 6.4 billion nucleotides in them. Well, what if a mutation were to take place on one of those chromosomes? Well, it's a whole lot better to go in and just remove that nucleotide, put in the correct nucleotide, repair that damage than it would be to replace the entire chromosome if it was not built out of those subunits to begin with. So let's see, a good example that I could think of to illustrate this would be here. So here we've got basically two kinds of tile floor. And so one is made out of the ceramic tiles and one's made out of the vinyl printed tiles, or the tiles are printed on vinyl. So you guys have probably seen this stuff before. It covers the entire floor, almost like a piece of plastic carpet. And then of course here would be regular tiles with the mortar in between. And so the idea here would be that if damage were to happen to either kind of floor here, then here it would be a rather simple thing to go in and remove this tile and put in a replacement, assuming we could find a replacement. But we put a replacement in, mix up some new grout, put the grout in, and it should be good as new. So replacing that subunit allows us to rescue that floor and make that floor, fix that floor in a way that presents a solid floor again. And it's really easy to repair that and get a floor that is going to look and function normally. Whereas damage on this side is obviously going to affect the entire thing. So really, I mean, they make little kits where you can go in and put some glue on this and a little piece of film on top to keep it from curling back over, and supposedly it looks like you won't be able to see that the repair is there, but certainly you'd still probably be able to see it if you knew it had been there. Bottom line is, if you really wanted to fix this, you'd have to tear out the entire piece of vinyl, put in a new piece of vinyl, and that's the only way that the damage is going to disappear. So this one would be a lot less expensive and a lot easier to take care of, and it leaves you with something that is not going to show the damage. It's not going to be compromised, whereas over here you're going to end up with something that is always going to have that damage, and the only way to get rid of the damage would be to replace the whole thing, and that's very expensive and very difficult to do because all the furniture would have to come out, and all the anything underneath this would have to be cleaned up and removed before we could put a new piece in. So there's just a lot more work on this side than there is on this side. So hopefully that helps illustrate advantage number 3. Advantage 4 is not so much about the structural advantages, but it's more about the versatility. So when we take large structures and build them out of subunits, it creates a situation where we can actually use those subunits based on needs to do different things. And so one, it gives us some ability to do things pretty rapidly, where we can assemble and disassemble fairly quickly according to the needs of the cell, but it also introduces the ability to do things in different ways. So a good example in the cell would be the microtubules, these fibers of the cytoskeleton that under normal conditions, remember, crisscrossing throughout the cell in this pretty tight little mesh. But when it comes time for a cell to divide, you guys have studied mitosis, we'll go through some of the details on mitosis later. But over a period of an hour, a cell is going to divide into two cells. And remember that the mitotic spindle forms and pulls those chromosomes apart, or the sister chromatids apart of each chromosome. And the neat thing is that the microtubules that used to be this crisscross network very quickly can turn into that mitotic spindle, which pulls the chromosomes apart. And then once the division phase is over, what happens? Reassembles back into the cytoskeleton. So the entire process of mitosis takes about an hour. So if you think about the reorganization of this guy, a fraction of that. All right, so here's a pretty neat example, I think, for this versatility. And what I want you to think about here, of course, is the nature of the building blocks. Notice that the building blocks here have not changed. It is still the same little building block, and the way in which we put them together can be completely different to have basically achieved the same, or different, basically we're achieving the same versatility of building, but we're being able to do a whole lot of different things based off of those same building blocks. So if you think about proteins, we've got 20 amino acids. Well, there's a bunch of different ways that those can go together and fold up into different enzymes and different structures and so on. So we'll talk about proteins at a later time in this chapter. Bottom line here with Advantage 4 is that these subunits give us the ability to do a lot of different things and actually be able to do it pretty quickly. Okay? All right, so next time what we'll do is we'll actually kind of expand on this a little bit and talk about the way in which these molecules actually, there's some rules that they have to abide by chemically, and these are important when it comes to assembling larger structures out of these building blocks. All right, so see you in the next one.